They called him a fool when he dragged that rusted wreck home for $100. His neighbor, the polished CEO in her designer heels, laughed right in front of his kid. But while everyone saw trash, Caleb Rowan saw something they couldn't. Lines too perfect, curves too deliberate. That pile of corroded metal hiding in plain sight would soon shake an entire community, humble the woman who mocked him, and prove that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones everyone else walks past. This is the story of the $100 car that changed everything. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The tow truck driver didn't bother hiding his smirk as he unloaded the car onto Caleb's driveway. It wasn't really a car anymore, more like the skeleton of one, wrapped in rust and despair. The wheels barely turned. The hood was a patchwork of corrosion. Where paint should have been, there was only oxidized metal the color of dried blood. "You sure about this, buddy?" the driver asked, unhooking the chains with practiced efficiency. "Salvage yard's got a crusher. Could have saved yourself the tow fee." Caleb handed him 320s and didn't answer. He'd heard enough opinions for one day. The driver shrugged, pocketed the cash, and drove off, leaving Caleb alone with his purchase and the growing audience of neighbors pretending not to stare from their porches. Finn appeared at his elbow, all of 7 years old, eyes wide behind glasses that kept sliding down his nose. "Dad, it's really ugly." "Yeah, buddy, it is." "Why'd you buy it?" Caleb crouched down, wiping his hands on jeans already stained with who knows what from the salvage yard. "Because sometimes things aren't what they look like on the outside. You remember that book we read? The one about the old horse? The one that won the race?" "Exactly." Finn pushed his glasses up and walked slowly around the car, his small hand trailing along the driver's side door. "Does it have a name?" "Not yet. Want to help me figure one out?" Before Finn could answer, heels clicked against concrete. Caleb didn't need to look up to know who it was. Avery Sloane had a particular way of walking, confident, purposeful, the kind of stride that announced her presence before she opened her mouth. "Caleb." Her voice carried that practiced professional warmth that didn't quite reach genuine. "That's quite a project you've got there." He stood, resisting the urge to wipe his hands on his jeans again. Avery was in full work mode, tailored navy blazer, cream blouse, pants that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget. She'd been his neighbor for 2 years, ever since she'd bought the renovated Victorian 3 houses down. They'd exchanged pleasantries at neighborhood barbecues, nodded in passing, nothing more. "Just something to work on," Caleb said. She walked closer, her nose wrinkling slightly as she took in the full scope of the wreck. "You paid money for this?" $100. 100? She stopped herself, glanced at Finn, then back at Caleb with something that might have been pity. "Well, everyone needs a hobby, I suppose." "It's going to be really cool when we fix it," Finn piped up, his voice carrying that absolute certainty only children possess. Avery's smile tightened. "I'm sure it will be, sweetheart." She turned back to Caleb. "You know, the neighborhood association has regulations about inoperable vehicles being visible from the street. Just something to keep in mind." "It won't be here long," Caleb said, keeping his voice even. "I'll have it in the garage tonight." "Of course." She checked her watch. Expensive, minimal, probably Swiss. "I've got a call in 10. Good luck with your project." She walked away, heels clicking, already pulling out her phone. Caleb watched her go, jaw tight. It wasn't the first time someone had looked at him like he'd made a stupid decision. Probably wouldn't be the last. "I don't think she believes in us," Finn said quietly. "That's okay. We believe in us, right?" Finn nodded, but his shoulders had hunched slightly, the way they did when kids at school said things about not having a mom. Caleb felt that familiar surge of protective anger, the kind that made him want to prove everyone wrong just to wipe that look off his son's face. "Come on," he said, ruffling Finn's hair. "Let's get this thing into the garage before it becomes a neighborhood scandal." Getting the car into the garage was easier said than done. The wheels turned, but barely. The steering was locked. Caleb had to physically push while Finn steered from inside, even though the wheel didn't actually move. It took 20 minutes and left Caleb sweating through his shirt. But eventually, the car sat inside the garage, hidden from judgmental eyes. He hit the button to close the garage door and stood there for a moment, hands on his hips, catching his breath. The car looked worse under the fluorescent work lights, every flaw magnified, every imperfection highlighted. "Dad?" Yeah, buddy. What if Miss Sloane is right? What if it's just junk? Caleb pulled 2 bottles of water from the mini fridge he kept out here and handed one to Finn. You want the truth? Finn nodded. I don't know if it's junk or not, but here's what I do know. I've been working on cars since I was younger than you, and when I looked at this thing at the salvage yard, I saw something weird. What kind of weird? The body lines, the curves. They're too precise, too intentional. He ran his hand along the roofline, feeling the contours beneath the rust. Cars from junkyards, they're usually banged up, dented, warped. This one? The frame is straight. The proportions are right. Someone built this car carefully. So it's special. Maybe. Or maybe I'm seeing patterns that aren't there. Either way, we're going to find out. Finn grinned, and that was enough. That was always enough. After Finn went to bed that night, Caleb returned to the garage with a toolbox, a 6-pack of beer he wouldn't finish, and a portable speaker playing the classic rock station. This was his time, the hours between 9 p.m. and midnight when the world got quiet and he could work with his hands and not think about everything else. He started with the hood, trying to pop it open. The release was rusted solid. It took 10 minutes with penetrating oil and a pry bar before it finally gave with a screech that probably woke the neighbors. Caleb didn't care. The engine bay was a disaster, rust, grime, evidence of mice having made a home at some point. But as he cleaned away decades of neglect with degreaser and rags, something emerged that made him stop. The engine mounts were custom, not factory, not aftermarket either. These were hand-fabricated, welded with precision that spoke of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The exhaust manifold had been modified, port-matched by someone with serious skills. And there, on the underside of the hood, barely visible beneath the corrosion, was a series of numbers and letters stamped into the metal. Caleb grabbed his phone and a wire brush, carefully cleaning the area until he could read it clearly. P-71/E003. He photographed it, then kept cleaning. The more he uncovered, the stranger it got. This wasn't a standard production car. The welds were too good. The modifications too integrated. Someone had built this car from the ground up with a specific purpose in mind. By midnight, he had made his way under the car, rolling beneath it on a creeper with a work light. The chassis was solid, remarkably so for something this old. And there, on the driver's side frame rail, he found it. A stamp. Small, deliberate, hammered into the metal. J. Mercer, 1974. Caleb's heart kicked up. J. Mercer. The name tugged at something in the back of his mind, a memory from years ago, from car magazines his father used to keep in the garage when Caleb was a kid. He rolled out from under the car and pulled up Google on his phone, fingers moving quickly despite the grease. J. Mercer Racing Engineer 1974. The results loaded and Caleb felt his pulse quicken. Jonas Mercer, designer and engineer for the Horizon Racing Team. Known for building experimental endurance racing prototypes in the early 1970s. Most of his designs had been destroyed or lost to history. There were rumors of a series of cars, the P-71 series, that had been built for a canceled endurance racing program. Only 3 had allegedly been completed before the program folded and the team dissolved. No one knew what had happened to the cars. Caleb looked at the rusted coupe sitting in his garage, then back at his phone. No way, he muttered. No possible way. But the stamp didn't lie, and neither did the craftsmanship. This wasn't some backyard project. This was something significant, something built by someone who knew what they were doing. He spent the next hour photographing everything. The engine bay, the chassis, the stamp, the custom parts. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He logged into an old account on vintageracingforum.com, a site he used to frequent back when he had time for hobbies beyond survival. His username was still there. Caleb Rowan _restored. He created a new thread. Subject: Help IDing a mysterious 70s coupe. Jonas Mercer. Connection? He uploaded the photos and wrote, bought this for $100 at a salvage yard. Found custom racing modifications and a stamp. J. Mercer, 1974, on the chassis. Also found P-71/E003 under the hood. Body lines are too precise for a kit car or backyard build. Anyone know what this might be? He hit post, closed his laptop, and headed inside. It was nearly 1 a.m. He had to be up at 6 for work. Sleep didn't come easy. His mind kept turning over the possibilities, the what-ifs. By the time his alarm went off, he'd managed maybe 4 hours of fitful rest. Finn was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal still in his pajamas. "Did you work on the car?" he asked through a mouthful of Cheerios. "A little. Found some interesting stuff." "Like what?" "Like evidence that someone very good at building cars made ours." Finn's eyes lit up. "So it is special?" "Maybe. We'll see." Caleb made coffee, got Finn ready for school, and dropped him off before heading to his job at Morrison Hardware. It was mindless work, stocking shelves, helping customers find the right screws and paint, but it paid the bills and let him pick Finn up from school at 3. His phone buzzed in his pocket around 10 a.m. He was helping an elderly woman find weather stripping when he felt it. Then it buzzed again, and again. During his break, he checked. 47 new notifications from the Vintage Racing Forum. His thread had exploded. The first comment was from a user named Vintage Pete. "Holy shit! If that's real, you might have just found one of the lost P71s. Do not restore it yet. Get it authenticated first." Another from Racing Historian. The P71/E designation matches Horizon's Endurance prototype series. 3 were built. 2 were supposedly destroyed in testing. The third disappeared. If this is 003, you're holding a piece of racing history. And then, 3 comments down, one that made Caleb's coffee go cold. This is either the find of the decade or an elaborate fake. Those prototypes were worth serious money even back then. If authentic in current market, we're talking 7 figures. Easy. 7 figures. Caleb read it again. 7 figures. His hands were shaking slightly as he scrolled through the rest of the comments. Most were skeptical but intrigued. A few called it a hoax, but several users who seemed to actually know what they were talking about were urging him to contact specific collectors, specific museums, specific authenticators. One message was a private DM from a user named Horizon_archivist. "I've been researching the Horizon racing team for 20 years. If you really have P71/E003, I need to see it. Where are you located? I can be there within 48 hours. Caleb stared at his phone until his break ended. Then he slipped it back into his pocket and returned to stocking shelves, his mind spinning. That evening, after picking up Finn and making dinner, spaghetti, the 3rd time this week, he sat his son down at the kitchen table. "Remember when I said the car might be special?" Finn nodded, twirling pasta around his fork. "It might be very special, like people are going to want to see it special." "Can we still fix it?" "Yeah, buddy, but we might need to be really careful about how we fix it." "Because it's old?" "Because it might be important, like museum important." Finn's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "A museum would want our car." "Maybe, I don't know yet." "That would be so cool." Caleb smiled despite the knot of anxiety in his stomach. "Yeah, it would be." His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Is this Caleb Rowan?" A man's voice, older with a slight southern drawl. "Who's asking?" "My name is Richard Chen. I'm a collector and authenticator specializing in vintage racing vehicles. I saw your post on the forum. I'd like to make you an offer." "I haven't even confirmed what it is yet." "I know what it is. I've been looking for P71/E003 for 15 years. I'll give you $50,000 sight unseen right now. Cash." Caleb's grip tightened on the phone. $50,000. That would cover Finn's braces, the credit card debt, the medical bills still hanging over him from Sarah's cancer treatment 3 years ago. "I need to think about it," he said. $75,000. Final offer, but it expires in 24 hours. "I said I need to think about it." A pause, then, "You don't understand what you have. That car is dangerous to own if you can't protect it." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. The racing world is small. Word is already spreading. You've got collectors, museums, and less scrupulous individuals who will all want that car. Some won't be as polite as I am." "Thanks for the warning." Caleb hung up. Finn was staring at him. "Who was that?" "Someone who wants to buy the car." "Are you going to sell it?" Caleb looked at his son, at those wide eyes behind crooked glasses, at the hope written clearly across his face. "No," he said, "not yet. Not until we know what we really have." The next morning, Caleb called in sick to work. He didn't feel good about lying, but he needed time. He needed to understand what was happening before this spiraled completely out of his control. He spent the morning in the garage documenting everything with his phone camera, every angle, every detail, every stamp and modification. Then he called his oldest friend. Marcus Webb answered on the second ring. "Caleb, my man, it's been a minute. I need your eyes on something. This about that car you posted? I saw that thread. Half the forum thinks you're full of shit. Can you come over?" "When?" "Now." Marcus showed up 40 minutes later in his work van, Webb's automotive restoration emblazoned on the side. He was a decade older than Caleb, with graying temples and hands perpetually stained with grease. They'd worked together at a custom shop years ago, back before Finn was born, before Sarah got sick, before life got complicated. Caleb opened the garage door. Marcus walked in, took one look at the car, and whistled low. "Jesus Christ, Caleb. You see it? The body lines." "Yeah, I see it." Marcus circled the car slowly, his practiced eye catching details Caleb had missed. "This is hand-shaped. Look at the fender curves. That's not stamped metal. Someone beat this into shape." "Hand-shaped means what?" "Means this was a custom build, probably a race car. You don't hand-shape body panels for a street car. It's too expensive, too time-consuming." He crouched by the front wheel. "These mounting points have been reinforced. This thing was built to take serious cornering forces." "What do you think it's worth?" Marcus stood, wiping his hands on his work pants. "Honestly, if it's what I think it is, more than your house. Maybe more than your house and my house combined. That's what I'm afraid of." "You get any weird calls yet?" "One. Collector offered 75 grand sight unseen. Don't take it. Wasn't planning to." Marcus pulled out his own phone, snapping photos. "You mind if I send these to a guy I know? He works with the Automotive History Museum up north, specializes in authentication." "What's his name?" "Tom Richter. Good guy. Honest. If anyone can tell you what you really have, it's him." Caleb nodded. "Do it." While Marcus made calls, Caleb went back to the forum. The thread had grown to over 200 replies. Most were spectators, rubbernecking at the possibility of a major find, but several comments stood out. From Classic Racing Doc, "I've authenticated several Horizon Racing pieces over the years. The P71 series was Jonas Mercer's masterwork. He disappeared from racing shortly after the program collapsed. Rumor was he had a breakdown after one of the test drivers died during a trial run. The remaining cars were supposed to be destroyed per the team owner's orders. If one survived, it would be the only complete P71 in existence." From Metal Memories, "My grandfather worked for Horizon as a fabricator. He always said Mercer was a genius who was ahead of his time. The P71s were supposed to revolutionize endurance racing. Then everything fell apart. Grandpa said someone smuggled at least one of the cars out before they could be scrapped. Never knew if it was true until maybe now." And then, at the bottom of the thread, a comment that made Caleb's blood run cold. "Be careful who you trust. The racing world has a long memory and short ethics. People have killed for less." The username was anonymous_1974. Caleb screenshotted it. Marcus came back into the garage, phone still pressed to his ear. "Yeah, Tom, he's right here." He held out the phone. "He wants to talk to you." Caleb took it. "Hello? Mr. Rowan?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Tom Richter. Marcus showed me your photos. I need to see that car in person." "When?" "I'm 3 hours away. I can be there by 6 tonight if that works." Caleb glanced at his watch. It was just past 2. "Yeah, that works. Don't let anyone else see it. Don't clean it any further. Don't touch anything. What you have is evidence, and we need it preserved." "Evidence of what?" "Of a car that's been missing for 50 years. Tom Richter arrived at exactly 6:07 p.m. in a silver SUV loaded with equipment. He was younger than Caleb expected, maybe 45, fit, with the kind of focused energy that came from genuine passion for his work. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Show me." Caleb led him to the garage. Tom walked in, set down his equipment case, and stood absolutely still for a long moment, just staring. My God, he said quietly. It's real. You're sure? I won't be completely sure until I run tests, but he moved closer, pulling out a small flashlight and examining the chassis. The fabrication techniques match Mercer's documented work. The proportions are correct. And this stamp, he illuminated the J. Mercer marking. This is his signature style. He stamped every major piece he built. Tom spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. He took paint samples, metal scrapings, detailed photographs with specialized equipment. He measured tolerances, checked welds, examined every custom part. Caleb and Marcus watched from the doorway, not wanting to interfere. Finally, Tom stood, peeling off latex gloves. This is P71/E003. I'd bet my reputation on it. What does that mean? Caleb asked. It means you own one of the most significant pieces of American racing history. It means collectors around the world are going to want this car. Museums will want it. And unfortunately, it means you're about to have problems you didn't ask for. What kind of problems? Tom met his eyes. The kind where you need insurance, security, legal protection. This car is worth millions, Caleb. Potentially as much as $5 million in the right auction. The number hit like a physical blow. $5 million for a $100 salvage yard find. Marcus let out a low whistle. Holy shit. I can't protect that, Caleb said. I don't have security. I know people who can help, Tom interrupted. But first we need to get this documented officially. I need to write a full authentication report, and you need to decide what you want to do. What are my options? You can sell it privately, auction it, donate it to a museum for a tax write-off, or restore it yourself and keep it. And if I want to restore it, then you need a team, specialized fabricators, people who understand historical preservation. You'd be looking at $500,000 in restoration costs, minimum, and 2 years of work. Caleb's head was spinning. I need to think. Think fast. Word is spreading. Marcus and I will keep quiet, but someone on that forum is going to figure out where you are eventually. After Tom left, promising to send his preliminary report within 48 hours, Caleb sat alone in the garage, staring at the car. $5 million. He could pay off everything. Set up a college fund for Finn, buy a real house with a yard, stop working retail and actually breathe for the first time in years. But there was something else too. A weight he couldn't name. This car had a story. Someone had built it with purpose, with skill, with passion. Jonas Mercer had created something important, and then it had vanished into obscurity. Didn't it deserve better than being hidden in some private collection? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your find, we should talk. Elliot Graves, Graves Collection. Then another. Heard about the P71. Interested in discussing acquisition. Name your price. Pinnacle Automotive Museum. And another. Mr. Rowan, I represent a client willing to offer $3 million cash, immediate close. Please call. They were circling already. Caleb turned off his phone and went inside. Finn was asleep on the couch, pajamas on, glasses folded on the coffee table. Some cartoon was playing on mute. Caleb picked him up carefully. Seven was getting too big for this, but not quite yet, and carried him to bed. Finn stirred but didn't wake, just curled into his pillow with a soft sigh. We're going to be okay, buddy, Caleb whispered. Whatever happens, we're going to be okay. He left the door cracked and walked to his own bedroom. On the nightstand was a photo from 6 years ago. Sarah, healthy and smiling, holding infant Finn in the hospital. She'd been so proud, so certain they were going to build something good together. I think I found something, Sarah, he said to the photo. I don't know what to do with it yet, but I think maybe this is our chance. The next morning, Caleb woke to find his phone had 37 missed calls and over 100 new messages. The forum thread had been picked up by a vintage car blog, then a racing news site. Now it was spreading across social media. Someone had identified him. His name was out there. His address wasn't, not yet, but it was only a matter of time. He called Marcus in a panic. I know, Marcus said before Caleb could speak. I saw. Listen, Tom's guy can get you security, legitimate security, but you need to move fast. I don't have money for security. Tom says the museum he works with will front it as part of a potential acquisition discussion. They're interested in buying. Everyone's interested in buying. Yeah, but these guys are legitimate. They'd restore it, display it publicly, give Mercer credit. Isn't that what you wanted? Caleb didn't remember saying that out loud, but Marcus was right. That was exactly what he wanted. Set up a meeting, Caleb said. The security arrived that afternoon, two guys in a nondescript sedan who parked on the street and didn't introduce themselves. Just nodded at Caleb and took up positions where they could watch the house and garage. By evening, news vans had appeared at the end of the block. Caleb closed the blinds and tried to explain to Finn why they couldn't go outside.
Is it because of this car? Finn asked. Yeah, buddy. Are people mad at us? No, they want something we have. The car? The car. Finn was quiet for a moment, processing. If the car is making problems, maybe we should sell it. Caleb crouched down to his son's eye level. Is that what you want? I don't want people to be mean to you.
Hey, Caleb put his hands on Finn's shoulders. People have been mean before. We handled it. We'll handle this too. But I'm not selling that car unless you and I both agree it's the right thing to do. Deal? Finn nodded, but his eyes were worried. That night, Caleb stood at his bedroom window, watching the news vans and the security detail, and the neighbors who kept walking past to stare. 3 houses down, he could see lights on in Avery's Victorian. He wondered what she was thinking now. The next day brought the meeting Caleb had been dreading. Elliot Graves arrived in a car that probably cost more than Caleb had earned in the past 5 years. He was exactly what Caleb expected. Mid-60s, silver hair, custom suit, the kind of casual wealth that didn't need to announce itself. They met in Caleb's living room. Graves sat on the worn couch like he was doing it a favor, his eyes taking in the thrift store furniture and the crayon drawings on the walls. Mr. Rowan, he began, I'll be direct. I collect significant automotive history. The P-71 belongs in a proper collection, preserved and protected. I'm prepared to offer $4 million. Tom Richter said 5. Tom Richter doesn't have $4 million in cash to hand you today. Graves leaned forward. I can have funds transferred within 24 hours. You could walk away from all this attention, set your son up for life, and never worry about money again. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. What would you do with it? Caleb asked. I'd restore it to show condition and add it to my private collection. Private meaning no one sees it. Meaning it's properly cared for by professionals, not sitting in a garage collecting dust. Caleb felt his jaw tighten. It's not collecting dust. I'm taking care of it. With respect, you're a hardware store employee. You don't have the resources or expertise to handle something this significant. And there it was. The assumption. The dismissal. Caleb stood. I think we're done here. Graves didn't move. You're making a mistake. That car is a burden you're not equipped to carry. Maybe, but it's my burden. Thanks for coming by. Graves left, but not before handing Caleb a business card. When you realize I'm right, call me. The offer expires in 72 hours. After he was gone, Finn emerged from his bedroom where he'd been hiding. You didn't sell it, he said. Nope.
Why? Because I didn't like him. Finn grinned. Me neither. He looked like a villain. Yeah, he kind of did. That evening, Caleb sat in the garage again, staring at the car. His phone buzzed constantly. Offers, threats disguised as warnings, collectors trying to negotiate. He ignored all of it. He was in over his head. He knew that. But something about this car, about this moment, felt like more than just money. It felt like proof that he could still recognize value when everyone else saw trash. That his instincts were worth something. That maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the fool everyone seemed to think he was. The garage door was open slightly, letting in the evening air. He heard footsteps approaching and tensed, ready to tell another collector to leave. But it wasn't a collector. It was Avery. She stood at the edge of the garage, still in work clothes, her arms crossed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I owe you an apology, she finally said. Caleb blinked. What? I mocked you. In front of your son. I assumed you'd made a stupid purchase without knowing anything about you or your judgment. She stepped closer. I was wrong. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. She looked at the car, really looked at it, in a way she hadn't before. I've spent the last 2 days reading about this car.
about Jonas Mercer, about the Horizon Racing team. This is important. Yeah, it is. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I've dealt with collectors before. In my business, I see a lot of wealthy people trying to acquire things they want. Graves is known for being ruthless. If you turn him down, he won't take it well. Is that a warning? It's friendly advice from someone who should have been friendlier from the start. Caleb studied her. There was something different in her expression, genuine respect, maybe even a hint of admiration. Thank you, he said. She turned to leave, then paused. If you need anything, legal advice, security recommendations, someone to run interference with the media, let me know. I have resources. Why would you help me? Because I was a jerk to your kid. And because you found something amazing and deserve a fair shot at handling it properly. She smiled slightly. Also, it's kind of fun watching someone stick it to Elliot Graves. After she left, Caleb sat alone with the car and his thoughts. The security guards were outside. The news vans were still at the end of the block. The phone kept buzzing with messages he wouldn't read. But for the first time since this started, Caleb felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely alone in this. He reached out and touched the car's door handle, feeling the cold metal beneath his fingers. All right, he said quietly. Let's see where this goes. The morning after Avery's unexpected apology, Caleb woke to find frost on the windows and his phone dead from the constant barrage of notifications. He'd finally turned it off around 2 a.m., unable to handle another message from someone who wanted to tell him what to do with his own property. Finn was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with his cereal, scrolling through something on the tablet they used for homework. Dad, you're famous. What? Finn turned the screen around. It was a YouTube video titled Hidden Racing Legend Found in Salvage Yard. Must see. $100 to $5 million. The thumbnail was a photo someone had taken of Caleb's garage from the street, zoomed in on the partially visible car. Where did you find this? It was in my recommended videos. There's like 10 of them now. Caleb took the tablet and scrolled. Finn was right. Multiple channels had picked up the story, each with their own speculation, dramatic narration, and thumbnail design screaming for clicks. Some had accurate information. Others were completely making things up. One claimed the car had belonged to a dead race car driver and was cursed. Another insisted it was worth $10 million and Caleb was being lowballed. A third suggested the whole thing was an elaborate hoax for internet attention. This is insane, Caleb muttered. Jason at school said his dad thinks you should sell it and buy a new house. Jason's dad doesn't know what he's talking about. That's what I said. Caleb handed back the tablet. You defending me at school? Always. That word hit harder than it should have. Finn had been defending him for years, against the kids who made fun of their old car, their small apartment, the fact that Finn's clothes came from Target, while theirs came from somewhere with a name Caleb couldn't pronounce. Now his 7-year-old was defending his decisions about a $1 million car. You shouldn't have to do that, buddy. Finn shrugged, shoving another spoonful of cereal into his mouth. I don't mind. You make good choices. Not everyone thinks so. Ms. Sloan does now. Caleb couldn't argue with that. He dropped Finn at school, ignoring the stares from other parents who'd clearly seen the news, and headed home to find Marcus's van already in the driveway. Marcus was leaning against it, drinking coffee from a travel mug, watching the security guards watch the house. This is wild, man, Marcus said as Caleb approached. You got armed guards now? They're not armed, I think. You should check. They went into the garage together. The car sat exactly where it had been, but somehow it looked different now that Caleb knew what it was. The rust was still there, the damage still visible, but underneath all that decay was something deliberate, something crafted with purpose. Marcus walked around it slowly, the way he always did when examining a project. Tom called me this morning. His full authentication report is done. And it's definitely P71/E003. No question. He found manufacturing codes that match Horizon Racing's documentation, found evidence of the original paint under the rust, a color called shadow blue that Mercer specifically mixed for the endurance program, even found some of the original interior fabric trapped in the seat frame. So it's real. It's real. which means you've got a decision to make. Caleb sat on his work stool, suddenly exhausted despite the day barely starting. Everyone keeps saying that. But what decision? Sell it to someone who will hide it away? Donate it and get nothing? Try to restore it myself and go bankrupt? There's option 4, which is find the right buyer. Someone who will restore it properly and display it publicly. Someone who will give Mercer credit and make sure people know the story. You mean like a museum? Yeah, but not just any museum, the right one. Caleb's phone, which he'd reluctantly turned back on, buzzed. Tom Richter's name appeared on the screen. Speak of the devil, Caleb said, answering. Tom. Caleb, good. Listen, I talked to the director at Westbridge Automotive Museum. They're very interested. They want to make an offer. Everyone wants to make an offer. This one's different. They're not looking to hide it in storage. They want to make it the centerpiece of a new American racing history wing. Full restoration, public display, educational programming built around it. And they want to credit Jonas Mercer properly, maybe even track down his family if any are still alive. That caught Caleb's attention. They'd credit him? It would be the focal point of the display. His story, his engineering, his legacy. This car would finally get the recognition it deserved. What's the offer? They're prepared to go to $4.5 million, plus they'd name you as the discoverer in all the exhibition materials. Your son too, if you want. Caleb looked at the car. $4.5 million. Finn's entire future secured, his own future secured. Sarah's medical debts finally paid off 3 years after her death. Can I think about it? Of course, but Caleb, this is a good offer from good people. I've worked with Westbridge for years. They'll do right by this car. After he hung up, Marcus was watching him. You gonna take it? Marcus asked. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. But I keep thinking about Jonas Mercer, about how he built this thing and then it just disappeared, about how no one remembers his work. If I sell it, even to a museum, I lose control of the story. You'd still be part of it. As a footnote, the guy who found it, not the guy who saved it. Marcus set down his coffee. You want to restore it yourself. I don't have $500,000. No, but you've got something better. You've got the car. And people want access to it. You could leverage that. How? Sponsorships, partnerships. Find a restoration shop that wants the publicity. Find parts suppliers who want their name attached to the project. Document the whole thing. Build a following. Make it a story people invest in. Then when it's done, you decide what happens to it. It was ambitious. Probably too ambitious. Caleb had never managed a project bigger than replacing an engine in his driveway. This would be coordinating multiple people, handling contracts, managing expectations, all while working full-time and raising a kid alone. But the idea had teeth. It felt right in a way the other options didn't. That would take years, Caleb said. Yeah, probably 2 minimum. I'd need help. I'm in. And I know people who'd kill for a chance to work on something like this. Before Caleb could respond, his phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Rowan? A woman's voice, older, refined. My name is Helen Mercer. I'm Jonas Mercer's daughter. Caleb nearly dropped the phone. Marcus's eyes went wide. I'm sorry, what? My father built that car you found. I've been following the news coverage. I needed to speak with you directly. Yeah, of course. I'm listening. My father died 12 years ago, Alzheimer's. By the end, he barely remembered his own name, let alone the cars he'd built. But before he got really bad, he used to talk about the P-71s, about how they were his best work, and how it killed him that they'd been destroyed. Caleb's throat tightened. They weren't all destroyed. I know that now, but he died thinking they were, thinking his legacy had been erased. Her voice wavered slightly. Mr. Rowan, I don't care what you do with that car. Sell it, restore it, donate it. But please, whatever you do, make sure people know my father built it. Make sure his name is attached to it. That's all I want. I will. I promise. Thank you. A pause. May I ask how you found it? Salvage yard. I was looking for a project car, saw it sitting in the back lot covered in rust. Something about it just looked wrong, too precise, too intentional. So I took a chance. My father would have liked that. He always said the best engineers could see potential where others saw scrap. They talked for another 10 minutes. Helen told him about her father, about his brilliance, his obsession with perfection, his devastating disappointment when the Horizon program collapsed. She told him about the test driver who died, about how Jonas had blamed himself even though it wasn't his fault, about how he'd never really recovered. When they finally hung up, Caleb sat in silence. Marcus waited. "I can't sell it," Caleb finally said. "I figured. I have to restore it properly. And I have to make sure people know who Jonas Mercer was. So we're doing this?" "We're doing this." Marcus grinned. "All right then. Let's build something worth remembering." The next week moved fast. Too fast. Caleb called Tom Richter and declined Westbridge's offer, which went about as well as expected. Tom was understanding but warned him that turning down $4.5 million was the kind of decision that could haunt him. Caleb knew. He still did it. Then came the hard part, figuring out how to actually make this work. Marcus brought in contacts from the restoration world. They sat around Caleb's kitchen table with notebooks and laptops, sketching out a plan that seemed increasingly impossible the more they talked. There was Ray Chen, a fabricator in his 60s who'd worked on vintage race cars for 40 years. He took one look at the photos and said he was in. No payment necessary until the car was done. There was Lisa Park, a paint specialist who'd restored museum pieces and knew the chemical composition of every automotive paint manufactured before 1980. She wanted access to document the original Shadow Blue for a research paper she was writing. There was Dominic Torres, an engine builder who'd rebuilt everything from Model Ts to modern supercars. He took one look at the custom engine modifications and called them art. One by one, people signed on, not because of money, but because of the car itself. Because working on a lost Jonas Mercer prototype was the kind of opportunity that came once in a career, if ever. But they still needed funding, parts, tools, shop space, insurance. Even with people working at cost or for deferred payment, they were looking at $200,000 minimum. Caleb had about $3,000 in savings. That's when Marcus suggested something that made Caleb's stomach turn. "We crowdfund it." "Absolutely not. Hear me out. People are already following this story. They want updates. They want to be part of it. We document the restoration, share the process, let them contribute and feel invested. In return, they get to watch something historic come back to life." "I'm not begging strangers for money." "It's not begging, it's offering them a chance to participate in something meaningful. Plus, the publicity helps protect you. The more public this is, the harder it is for someone like Graves to mess with you." Caleb hated that it made sense. They launched the campaign 3 days later. Marcus handled most of it, filming a video explaining the project, setting up the page, creating reward tiers. Caleb sat stiffly in front of the camera and tried to explain why this mattered without sounding like he was selling something. "This car represents something important," he said, reading off notes Marcus had written. "It's a piece of racing history that deserves to be preserved. But more than that, it's a reminder that good work doesn't disappear just because people forget about it. Jonas Mercer built something incredible, and I want to make sure people remember that." It felt awkward and rehearsed, but Marcus insisted it was perfect. They set the goal at $150,000, figuring they'd supplement with deferred payments and scrounging. The campaign went live on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, they'd raised $30,000. By Wednesday, $60,000. By Friday, they'd hit the full goal and kept climbing. People weren't just donating money. They were sending messages, sharing stories, posting their own photos of project cars and forgotten treasures they'd found. The comments section became a community of people who understood what it meant to see value in something everyone else had written off. One comment stuck with Caleb. "My dad was a mechanic who always said the best finds were the ones nobody else wanted. He died last year. This project makes me feel like his philosophy lives on. Thank you for doing this." Another. "I'm a single mom with 3 kids. I can't afford much, but I'm sending $20 because I want my daughters to see that determination matters more than money." By the end of the first week, they'd raised $220,000. Caleb sat at his kitchen table, staring at the number on the screen, unable to process it. 200,000 people didn't give us this," Marcus said, looking over his shoulder. 200,000 people believe in this. That's the difference." The phone rang. Caleb was almost afraid to answer it. It was Elliot Graves. "You made a mistake," Graves said without preamble. "Good to hear from you, too." "I'm serious, Rowan. You're in over your head. This crowdfunding stunt is embarrassing. Take my offer before you humiliate yourself. Your offer expired. I'm extending it. 3.5 million. Right now. Before the circus gets worse. Not interested. You're going to fail. You don't have the expertise, the connections, or the discipline to pull this off. And when you do fail, that car is going to end up in a scrap heap where it belongs. Caleb felt his temper spike. Is there a point to this call? The point is that I'm giving you one last chance to be smart. Walk away with enough money to change your life. Or keep playing restorer and end up with nothing. Thanks for the advice. He hung up. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Graves? Yeah. He's scared. Of what? Of you actually pulling this off. Because if you do, it proves that regular people can accomplish something meaningful without needing his money or approval. Guys like Graves hate that. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Graves had said, about being in over his head, about failing. He wasn't wrong. Caleb had never done anything like this. He'd restored cars, sure, but never something this significant. Never something where the whole world was watching. What if he screwed it up? What if he damaged the car beyond repair? What if he let down all those people who donated their money and their faith? He got up and walked to the garage. The security guards were still out front. They'd be there for another week until the media attention died down. Caleb slipped past them and stood in the darkness, looking at the shadowy outline of the car. Don't make me regret this, he said quietly. The car predictably didn't answer. But standing there in the silence, Caleb felt something settle in his chest. This was the right choice. Hard, maybe impossible, but right. He'd figure it out. He had to. The next morning, Avery knocked on his door holding 2 cups of coffee. Peace offering, she said. And also, I want to help. Caleb took the coffee. Help how? I run a tech company. I know about project management, about coordinating teams, about handling logistics. You're about to manage a complex restoration with multiple contractors, public scrutiny, and financial pressure. That's basically my job description, minus the cars. I can't afford to hire you. I'm not asking for payment. I'm offering to volunteer. Think of it as community service for being a judgmental ass when you first bought the car. Despite everything, Caleb smiled. You don't owe me this. Maybe not, but I want to be part of it anyway. Plus, Finn thinks I'm cool now because I believed in you guys. I'd like to keep that status. He said that yesterday at the bus stop. He told another kid that Ms. Sloan says his dad is smart and everyone who doubted him was wrong. Caleb's throat tightened. Okay. Yeah, we could use the help. Avery's smile was genuine. Good. Because I already created a project management system for tracking the restoration phases, contractor schedules, and budget allocation. Want to see? She pulled out her phone, showing him a detailed spreadsheet that made his head spin. This is way more organized than anything Marcus and I came up with. That's because you're car people. I'm a systems person. Together we might actually pull this off. Over the next few days, things began to take shape. Ray Chen secured shop space at a restoration facility he'd worked with for years. They were willing to donate the space in exchange for publicity and the right to showcase the restoration to clients. Lisa Parks started researching paint suppliers who could recreate shadow blue from the samples she'd analyzed. Dominic Torres began sourcing parts, calling in favors from contacts around the country who might have period-correct components or the ability to fabricate them. And Avery built a system to track everything, sending Caleb daily updates that kept him from drowning in the chaos. The car itself was transported to Ray's shop under cover of darkness, escorted by security that made the whole thing feel like a heist movie. Caleb followed in his own car, refusing to let the P-71 out of his sight. When they finally had it inside the shop, under proper lighting, Ray stood back and whistled. Okay, now I can really see what we're working with. He spent an hour examining every inch, taking notes, occasionally shaking his head in what looked like admiration. Mercer was a genius, Ray finally said. Look at these welds. Look at this frame construction. This isn't just engineering. This is sculpture. Can we restore it? We can. But we need to be smart. This isn't about making it perfect. It's about preserving what's here while bringing it back to function. We strip away the damage, but we keep the soul. How long? 18 months if everything goes right. 2 years if we hit complications. Which we will. Caleb nodded. He'd expected that. They started documenting everything immediately. Marcus set up cameras to record the process. Every part removed, every discovery made, every challenge encountered, all of it captured for the people who'd made this possible. The first major discovery came 2 days into the teardown. Ray was removing the dashboard when he found it, a small metal plate tucked behind the instrument cluster. It was engraved with a message. To whoever finds this, you're holding my best work. Don't waste it. JM. Ray called Caleb over. They stood there staring at it, this message from a man 50 years gone, speaking directly to them across time. He knew, Caleb said softly. He knew someone would find it eventually. Or he hoped, Ray said. Sometimes hope is enough. They removed the plate carefully and set it aside. Later it would be displayed alongside the car, a piece of the story that deserved to be told. As the teardown continued, more pieces of Jonas Mercer's work revealed themselves. Custom fabricated brackets that showed evidence of hand filing for perfect fit, welds that were stronger and cleaner than anything modern equipment could produce, design choices that were decades ahead of their time. But there was damage too. Corrosion that went deeper than they'd hoped, a cracked frame rail that would need careful repair, evidence that the car had seen hard use before being abandoned, scars from racing, from pushing limits, from doing exactly what it was built to do. Good, Ray said when they found a particularly nasty impact point on the rear quarter panel. This car has a history. It lived. That's worth preserving too. The media attention hadn't died down completely, but it had shifted. Now, instead of speculation about the car's value, people were following the restoration. YouTube channels broke down each update. Forums debated the proper way to handle specific repairs. Vintage racing experts chimed in with advice and encouragement. Helen Mercer called regularly, wanting to know every detail. Caleb would sit in his truck during lunch breaks and describe the day's discoveries. The way her father had reinforced the suspension points, the custom fuel system he'd designed, the evidence of his meticulous attention to every component. He'd be so happy, she said during one call, knowing someone cared enough to do this right. I'm trying, but every day we find something new that makes me realize how far I am from understanding what he built. That's the point, though. You're learning. You're seeing his work the way he saw it, as something worth studying, worth understanding. That's the greatest tribute you could give him. About 6 weeks into the restoration, Caleb was at the shop late one night when someone knocked on the bay door. Ray was gone. Dominic had left an hour ago. Caleb was alone, working on cataloging parts under the harsh LED work lights. He opened the door cautiously. A man stood there, maybe 70, with a weathered face and calloused hands. He held a worn photo. You Caleb Rowan? Yeah. I'm Michael Patterson. I was a fabricator for Horizon Racing, worked under Jonas Mercer for 3 years. He held up the photo. It showed a younger version of himself standing next to a sleek blue race car. That's P71/E002. I helped build it. Heard you found 003. Caleb stepped aside. Want to see it? Michael walked in slowly, his eyes scanning the shop until they landed on the partially disassembled car. He stopped, stood perfectly still, and Caleb saw his jaw tighten. My God, it survived. You thought they were all destroyed? That's what we were told after the accident. After Tommy died testing 001, the team owner ordered everything scrapped, said he wouldn't be responsible for another death. We were supposed to destroy all 3 cars. Michael walked closer, reaching out but not quite touching. But rumors started that someone smuggled one out. I never knew if it was true. It was true. Who did it? I don't know. We haven't found any record of what happened between when the program ended and when the car ended up in that salvage yard. Michael nodded slowly. Jonas would know, but Jonas is gone. His daughter said he died thinking they were all destroyed. That must have killed him. These cars were everything to him. Michael finally touched the car, his hand trembling slightly as he ran it along the doorframe. We built these to change racing, to prove that American engineering could compete with anyone. And then it all fell apart. They talked for 2 hours. Michael told stories about working with Jonas, about the obsessive attention to detail, about the late nights and the impossible standards and the pure joy when something finally worked perfectly. He pointed out details on the car that only someone who'd been there could know: the specific way Jonas beveled certain edges, the signature he left in the welds, the modifications that weren't in any blueprint. Before he left, Michael pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. "This is a list of everyone who worked on the P-71 program. Most are probably gone now. But if any are still alive, they'd want to know. They'd want to see what you're doing." Caleb took the list. 17 names. Next to each was a role: fabricator, engineer, painter, mechanic. "Thank you," Caleb said. "No, thank you, for giving us a second chance to finish what we started." After Michael left, Caleb sat in the quiet shop and looked at the list. These were the people who'd poured their skill and passion into this car. They deserved recognition too. He called Avery. "I need help tracking down people. Can you do that?" "Probably. Who are we looking for?" He read her the list. "I'm on it," she said. "This is exactly the kind of research project I'm good at." Over the next month, Avery worked her magic. She found 12 of the 17 people still alive. Some had stayed in racing. Others had moved on to different careers. But when contacted, every single one wanted to be involved. They shared photos, technical documents, stories. One man sent original blueprints he'd kept in his garage for 5 decades. Another sent his personal notebooks filled with Jonas's handwritten notes and calculations. The restoration became something bigger than just fixing a car. It became an act of collective memory, of pulling together pieces of a story that had been scattered and forgotten. And through it all, the car slowly came back to life. The frame was repaired. The body panels were painstakingly reshaped. The engine was rebuilt with a precision that would have made Jonas proud. Lisa Park mixed and remixed until she had shadow blue perfect, then applied it in layers so thin you could barely see them individually, but together created a depth that seemed to glow. Finn visited the shop every weekend, watching with wide eyes as the pile of rust transformed into something beautiful. Ray let him help with small tasks, organizing bolts, cleaning parts, learning the names of tools. "When it's done, can we drive it?" Finn asked one Saturday. "That's the plan," Caleb said. "Where will we go?" "Wherever it wants to take us." As they approached the 1-year mark, the car was finally starting to look like what it had been: sleek, purposeful, alive. The media attention had settled into a dedicated following of people who checked for updates religiously, who debated restoration choices in forums, who felt genuine investment in the outcome. And then Elliot Graves showed up at the shop. Caleb was working late again when the knock came. He opened the bay door expecting a parts delivery and found Graves standing there in a suit that probably cost $5,000. "Mr. Rowan, may I come in?" "What do you want?" "To see what you've accomplished." Against his better judgment, Caleb let him in. Graves walked slowly around the car, saying nothing. His expression was unreadable. Finally, he stopped and turned to Caleb. "I underestimated you." "Yeah, you did." "This is remarkable work. You've managed something I didn't think possible." "Thanks, I guess." "I want to revise my offer." "Not interested." $6 million, and I'll fund a complete Jonas Mercer exhibition at a museum of your choosing. His name on everything. Full credit to your team. You'd be part of the story." It was a good offer. Maybe the best offer. Caleb could walk away with financial security and the knowledge that the car would be cared for properly. But he'd also be walking away from something he'd started. From a promise he'd made to Helen Mercer, to Michael Patterson, to all those people who donated their money and faith. "No," Caleb said. Graves's expression hardened. "You're making this about ego. I'm making it about finishing what I started. And when it's finished, what then? You keep it in your garage? Drive it to the grocery store?" "I don't know yet, but it's my choice to make." Graves was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "When you figure it out, call me. The offer stands." He left without another word. Caleb stood alone in the shop, staring at the car that had somehow become the center of his entire life. The smart move was probably taking Graves's money. The safe move. The sensible move. But Caleb was done making smart moves just because other people thought he should. He was going to finish this car, and then he was going to figure out what came next. On his terms. Nobody else's. The word spread faster than Caleb expected. Within days of Graves's visit, the neighborhood knew something was happening. Not just his street, but the whole community seemed to be buzzing with speculation about the car, about the money Caleb had turned down, about what kind of person walks away from $6 million. Avery stopped by on a